Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We always do here. Now, today headline. Now, I am shocked with Ukraine. I cannot believe it. I am shocked how they were able to execute a significant and enormous damage to the Russians with their new technologies and how they crippled the Russians. I mean, they dropped a bomb on the Russians, and it is estimated that Russians lost at least $4 billion in weaponry with planes and so on. It was words mentioning that it was impregnable. I guess the Russians were extremely confident that they couldn't be touched by the Ukrainians. But this was a significant blow to Vladimir Putin. Now, if you want to hear my conjecture of this matter, I think Trump had a little to do with that because he pissed Trump off. Yeah, Vladimir Putin, you pissed the boss off, Donald Trump. And I believe that Trump played a role because even as you watch the video that Ukrainian president mentioned that the Americans and the EU was an alliance. We have great technology, but that's my conjecture. But here comes the news, and always like, share, and subscribe if you want to. So let's get it.
Won't be any fireworks. And here we go.
Russian delegations are in Istanbul for peace talks. The real story, though, this unprecedented and audacious drone attack by Ukraine on Russian airfields and bombers. Ukraine attacked bases deep inside Russia, thousands of miles from the front lines, in what they're calling Operation Spiderweb. Ukrainian officials said that dozens of Russian warplanes were destroyed. Let's get right to CNN Chief International Correspondent Nick Payton-Walsh. This is quite a backdrop for these talks, which take place shortly, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely startling, the sophistication of this raid. One of these air bases hits almost halfway across Siberia. The Ukrainian security service able to use mobile wooden homes. Essentially, the roofs of them seem to have opened up and allowed these clouds of drones remotely piloted to target some of Russia's most important long-range strategic bombers. 41 damaged, according to Ukraine's security service, at air bases that must have thought they were basically far enough away to be impregnable. Ukraine very keen to announce that all the people involved in this year-and-a-half-long operation have since left the country. And yet another sign of how Ukraine's able to use its outsized use of technology to inflict significant damage on Russia's enormous military, something which, frankly, Kiev has always felt would be impregnable, but is increasingly showing its vulnerability over time. What does this mean? We don't know exactly what damage it's going to do to the nightly horrors inflicted on Ukrainian civilians by these long-range bombers. Some of them, indeed, were old enough they were still using propellers. But it's another sign that Ukraine is able to sometimes upset the balance. And as you mentioned, too, a remarkable backdrop for these talks in Istanbul. Here's what Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky at a NATO summit in Vilnius today had to say.
Europe, together with America, has better weapons than Russia. We also have stronger tactical solutions. Our Operation Spiderweb yesterday proved that. Russia must feel what its losses mean. That is what will push it toward diplomacy. And when Russia takes losses in this war, it's obvious to everyone that Ukraine is the one holding the line, not just for itself, but for all of Europe.
You could see in his arrival in Vilnius, Zelensky there with a bit of a spring in his step, frankly. A long-needed boost to Ukrainian morale, suffered so badly after that Oval Office blow-up with President Donald Trump. Does this change Russia's thinking? Well, many felt these peace talks in Istanbul were another example of Moscow's slow rolling, a peace process that had very minimal interest in seeing lead to a ceasefire. but it may make the Kremlin begin to wonder, if surprises like this come along frequently enough, how long they can sustain this conflict, and it may really do practical damage to their war effort too, John. So a remarkable weekend here. I should point out too, record number of drones launched by Russia over the weekend, and a startling number taken out by Ukraine's electronic warfare too. So technology increasingly on Ukraine's side, John.
Yeah, Ukraine very much trying to increase the costs on Russia and what impact that could have on discussions going forward. Nick Payton-Walsh for us. Thank you,
Message and news. CNN polling showing that neither Republicans nor Democrats are winning a clear majority of Americans right now when it comes to the economy. So what to do about that, and what is inside these numbers, and what can be learned from it? CNN's Harry Anton is looking into that. When it comes to what the message really is, I mean, which party's faring any better?
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. Plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
This is new CNN polling.
Yes.
How is that, when we look for trends, how is that trending with other data that you're pulling in?
Yeah, if it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty, in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, and that is the reason why, even if Donald Trump's approval ratings are a little bit lower than they used to be, Republicans are not out of the ballgame because they still have a clear advantage on the economy, whether you look at CNN's polls or whether you look at the Ipsos poll right here, in which they have a 12-point advantage on the economy, Kate.
And also in the CNN data, it does show that Republicans are gaining ground in an area that is key relating to all of this, which is when it comes to the middle class.
Yeah. You know, historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class, has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989, when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022, where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
All right, there's a lot of messages and a lot to be learned from these numbers and this data. It's good to see you, Harry.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see you,
so
Kate.
much. Still ahead.
It is clear and obvious that CNN hates to report this good news. They despise to report the statistics. Oh, they can't stand it. You can tell by their body language and the jargon that they're using when they realize that America is for conservative. America is for Trump, MAGA, make America great again. I always say this, and I continue to say this, and I will continue to be static with it. We are the majority. Yes, we are. And we are loving it. Look at it. Look at the stats. Numbers do not lie. They do not lie. They tell the book. You can just open it. The intro, from the intro, the start to the end. We are winning. Can I say winning? Winning, winning, winning. 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 That's right. Because we are for the people. The conservative movement. MAGA. Make America great again. Guys, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.